Welcome to the debate. Today, we are walking into the engine room of the modern organization. We're talking about recruitment. Now, before you tune out thinking this is just about HR administration or filling out forms, I want you to consider that recruitment is the single most expensive gamble a company takes. It is the funnel through which the entire future of the business must pass, from, identifying and sourcing to that final handshake.
Right, it is a funnel, sure. But the question we need to answer today is whether that funnel is designed to let in fresh air, or if it's just designed to, recirculate the same old atmosphere. I'm glad we're tackling this because the way we define recruitment, it determines what an organization becomes. Is it a process of replicating the status quo for the sake of stability? Or is it a hunt for the new, the different, and the innovative?
And that's the tension right there. Does relying on efficient, proven methods, specifically internal mobility and employee referrals, create a stable, cost-effective workforce? Or, as I suspect you will argue, does it lead to a dangerous homogeneity that stifles innovation? I am taking a side of structure, data, and efficiency. I believe that recruitment is primarily about risk management and leveraging known quantities to ensure the ship stays afloat.
And I come at it from a different angle. I believe that prioritizing fit and efficiency usually results in echo chambers. I'm arguing for external recruitment and broad sourcing. If we don't look outside the organization, specifically towards what the literature calls stars, or skilled through alternative routes, we aren't just missing talent, we are actively choosing stagnation.
I see why you take that view, but let me start by laying out the case for efficiency and the power of the known quantity. We have to look at the mechanics here. Recruitment is by definition a process of identifying, sourcing, screening, shortlisting, and interviewing. It's incredibly resource intensive, and when we look at the hard data regarding employee referrals, the case for leveraging internal networks is, well, it's overwhelming. We aren't just talking about hiring friends, we are talking about fiscal responsibility.
I know you're going to bring up the agency fees.
I absolutely am, because they are massive. Third-party recruitment agencies typically charge a finder's fee of, 20 to 25% of the hire's annual salary. Let's do the math on that. For a standard mid-level employee making $100,000, that is a $25,000 cost just to get a resume on the desk and a body in the chair. Employee referrals, they eliminate that agency fee entirely. That is immediate capital that stays in the business.
I don't dispute the raw cost savings on day one, but you're looking at the price tag, not the value.
It's not just the upfront price tag, though. The data indicates that candidates hired through referrals tend to stay up to 3 times longer than candidates hired through job boards. That is a massive, massive difference in retention. When you have high turnover, you're just burning that $25,000 over and over again. It's no wonder that the Global Employee Referral Index 2013 survey found that 92% of participants listed referrals as one of their top recruiting sources.
That is a compelling argument if your only metric is cost savings and, how long someone sits in a chair. But I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning because it ignores the quality of the output. Efficiency often comes at the cost of creativity. When you rely on referrals, you are essentially asking your current workforce to replicate themselves. You get people who look like your current team, think like your current team, and probably went to the same schools as your current team.
But isn't that what we call cultural fit? A team has to be able to work together.
Cultural fit, let's be honest, that's often just a euphemism for hiring people in the likeness of existing employees, and that's the danger. You might save that $25,000 agency fee, but what is the cost of missing the next great idea because everyone on your team shares the exact same cognitive blind spots? The source material explicitly warns that an overly homogeneous workforce is at risk because it fails to produce novel ideas or innovations. That's why I champion external recruitment. It brings friction. You need that friction to create heat and light.
I think you're characterizing referrals as purely nepotistic, which misses the mechanism that makes them effective. It's not just about likeness, it's about reputation and vetting.
How so?
When an employee refers someone, they put their reputation on the line. They aren't going to recommend a slacker or someone incompetent because it reflects poorly on them. That is a powerful vetting mechanism that no algorithm can match. There's a one-to-one relationship there. The candidate gets a realistic preview of the job, the good, the bad, and the ugly before they even apply.
The realistic job preview.
Exactly. This exchange of knowledge allows a candidate to assess their own likelihood of success. That is why they stay 3 times longer. They know what they are getting into. It's a self-selection process that saves the company from hiring people who quit in 3 months because the culture wasn't what they expected.
That sounds nice in theory, this idea of a reputation-based guarantee. But let's look at the actual mechanics of it. You mentioned the Global Employee Referral Index. If I am an engineer who went to a specific university and I only refer my friends from that university, we have created a closed loop. You are fishing in the same pond, so you catch the same fish.
If the fish are high quality, does the pond matter?
It matters if the pond is shrinking or if the market conditions change. This is the referral paradox. You get high retention, sure, but you also get fragility. And there's a legal aspect here you're glossing over. We see this in the rise of social recruiting. A study of Cypriot companies found that, 73.5% used social networking sites like Facebook and LinkedIn for recruiting.
Which is efficient.
It's popular, sure, but it raises significant legal issues regarding privacy and discrimination based on online profiles. When you rely on personal networks, you are inadvertently filtering out anyone who isn't already connected. You are building a wall, not a bridge. If your recruitment strategy is just who does Bob know, you are opening yourself up to disparate impact claims.
I would frame it differently. I would say we are building a filter, not a wall. And that brings me to the importance of screening and credentials. You talk about potential and fresh perspectives, but in a high-volume recruitment model like the multi-tier models we see in large corporations, we need valid heuristics to determine baseline competence. We cannot interview every single person who applies.
And what are those heuristics? Degrees?
Often, yes. But it's more sophisticated than just checking for a diploma. We utilize rigorous job analysis to determine the KSAOs, knowledge, skills, abilities, and other characteristics. The use of standardized tests, whether they be for literacy, physical ability, or psychometric testing, has been found to improve selection validity while avoiding discrimination. If we strip away these objective measures and rely purely on potential, we actually risk more bias creeping in. A degree or a test score is a verifiable standard of competence.
I'm sorry, but I don't buy that. The reliance on degree requirements is one of the biggest drivers of inequality and, frankly, inefficiency in the labor market. We are automatically screening out over 70 million workers who are stars, skilled through alternative routes.
70 million is a large number, but are they qualified for the specialized roles we're discussing?
In many cases, yes. These are people who possess the necessary soft skills, interpersonal, leadership, adaptability, team management, learned through military service, community college, or workforce training, but they lack the specific piece of paper you demand. Most employers claim to value these soft skills, yet their automated applicant tracking systems filter these people out before a human ever sees their resume.
The ATS is a tool for volume management.
It's a tool for exclusion. It's a broken system. The selection process as we know it is often claimed to be an invention of Thomas Edison. We are using industrial-age logic for a modern digital workforce. We are screening for compliance when we should be screening for capability.
I agree that we shouldn't be archaic, but we must be practical. Let's talk about the economics of this star hunt. You want to go external to find these hidden gems, but the data shows that to increase the number and quality of applicants externally, you have to increase the wage offered.
Explain that.
It's the application wage elasticity. It was estimated at, I believe, 1 by a recent study. That means there is a direct correlation. If you want better people from the outside, you have to pay more. You are entering a bidding war against the market.
Sometimes you have to pay for talent. That's how markets work.
But consider the internal alternative. Internal mobility allows you to fill a role without that bidding war. You already know the employee's work ethic, you trust them, and importantly, internal recruitment encourages longer careers at the company because employees see a future. If you always hire the shiny new object from the outside at a premium salary, your current staff disengages. You create a mercenary culture where the only way to get a raise is to quit.
But there is a massive flaw in your internal chess game. It's the domino effect.
The domino effect?
Yes. When you promote an employee internally to fill a gap, you haven't actually solved the problem. You've just moved the vacancy. You promote the manager to director? Great. Now you need a manager. You promote the associate to manager? Great. Now you need an associate. You still have a hole to fill in their previous position. Eventually, you have to go outside.
True, but usually at a lower, less risky level. You fill the entry-level role externally, which is cheaper, and carries less strategic risk than hiring a director from the outside who might wreck the culture.
Perhaps, but you are missing the macro trends. You can't just shuffle people around forever. Look at the energy industry. Niche firms have identified that the workforce is aging rapidly. About half of the workforce in that sector is readying for retirement. You cannot solve a demographic cliff like that with internal shuffling. You need external searches to bring in new blood. You need to use platforms like LinkedIn to find passive candidates, people who aren't looking but are perfect for the role. Internal mobility is a closed system. It cannot survive a major demographic shift.
That is a fair point regarding demographic shifts. When the well runs dry, you have to drill a new one. But I want to pivot to something you mentioned earlier about the stars and this idea of opening the gates. I believe rigorous process, what you might call bureaucracy, is actually the best defense against corruption and safety risks.
Are we talking about background checks?
I'm talking about safer recruitment, specifically regarding children and vulnerable adults, as defined by the NSPPC. In these contexts, you cannot just hire based on potential or a gut feeling or a loose recommendation. Rigorous background checks and screening are non-negotiable. It's a vital part of risk management.
I am not arguing against safety checks for vulnerable populations. That is obviously necessary. No one is suggesting we skip background checks for school teachers.
But the logic extends to business risk as well. The Independent Broad-Based Anti-Corruption Commission, or IBAC, found that corruption in recruitment is a massive business risk. Hiring unqualified friends or family, which, by the way, is the dark side of your open and creative approach if not managed, can be detrimental. A structured, data-driven process protects against nepotism. It prevents the recycling of problematic employees.
I see why you think structure protects against bias, but I would argue that rigid structures often codify bias, particularly against candidates with disabilities. And I'm not talking about this from a charity perspective. I'm talking about missed economic opportunity.
How so?
The word disability itself carries few positive connotations for most employers, and that is a tragedy of missed productivity. Research shows there is no difference in the daily production of a disabled worker compared to a non-disabled one. In fact, given their situation, they are often better problem solvers because they have spent their lives adapting to their environments to overcome adversity. They are resilient by necessity.
That is an interesting perspective on resilience.
It is. And yet the efficiency models you champion often filter them out because they might require a reasonable adjustment or because they don't fit the standard physical profile. But look at the benefits: higher retention, higher loyalty, and even specific financial incentives like the disabled access credit from the IRS. True inclusion isn't just about compliance or ethics. It's about recognizing that a different way of functioning in the world brings a different, valuable perspective to the business.
I appreciate that point. And to be clear, my argument for structure doesn't preclude hiring disabled workers. In fact, standardized testing can help level the playing field by focusing on ability rather than perception. But I think we're circling a central conflict. You want to hunt for the perfect external unicorn, and I want to build a reliable machine.
I wouldn't say I'm hunting for a unicorn. In fact, I think you are the one hunting for the purple squirrel.
The purple squirrel?
Yes, it's a term in the industry for those rare candidates considered to be perfect fits. Companies leave positions vacant for months hunting for this mythical creature, often trying to find them internally or through tight networks. They want someone who already knows the software, knows the acronyms, and hits the ground running on day one.
Which is efficient.
It's short-sighted. They should be looking broadly at potential and transferable skills. They should be looking for someone who can learn the software in a week but brings a whole new way of solving problems.
I think we need to synthesize where we stand here because the material suggests there was a way to handle both of these realities. It mentions the multi-tier recruitment model.
Right. Tell me how you see that fitting in.
In high-volume companies, they often split recruitment. Tier 1 is the help desk. Tier 2 is administration. That's the process management, the background checks, the efficiency I love. But Tier 3 is process in the sense of strategy.
And perhaps that is where the distinction lies. You are focused on Tier 2, the administration, the cost-cutting, the stability. I am focused on Tier 3, the strategy. Where are we going and who can get us there?
I wouldn't say I'm just administration. I'm saying that without the stability of Tier 2, Tier 3 is just a pipe dream. You can have all the innovative ideas in the world about stars and external sourcing, but if you burn through $25,000 agency fees on every hire and they leave in 6 months because they didn't understand the job, your company goes bankrupt. You need the fiscal backbone.
And I would counter that. If you lock down Tier 2 so tight that only the friends of current employees get hired or only people with a specific degree get through the filter, your company might not go bankrupt immediately, but it will become irrelevant. It will fail to innovate. It will die a slow death of sameness.
But let's look at the tools available today. We have applicant tracking systems, AI, psychometric testing. These are tools of efficiency. Do you reject them?
I don't reject them, but I question how they are tuned. If an applicant tracking system is set to reject anyone without a 4-year degree, it is a tool of exclusion. If it is tuned to identify skills and potential, it becomes a tool of inclusion. The problem isn't the technology, it's the mindset of the recruiter. Are we looking for reasons to say no, which is efficient, or are we looking for reasons to say yes, which is innovative?
That's a compelling way to put it, though I would frame it differently. We are looking for the highest probability of success. And history shows that someone who is already in the building or vetted by someone in the building has a statistically higher probability of success.
A higher probability of survival in the current culture, perhaps, but not necessarily success in changing that culture for the better.
We are approaching the end of our time, and I think we need to wrap this up. From my perspective, recruitment must be viewed through the lens of organizational stability and fiscal responsibility. The data on employee referrals, the cost savings, the retention rates is undeniable. Strategies like internal mobility capitalize on pre-existing trust and knowledge. You cannot build a lasting organization on a revolving door of strangers, no matter how talented they are.
And I maintain that recruitment is the primary engine for innovation. If you over-rely on safe methods like referrals and degree requirements, you exclude vast pools of talent, the stars, the disabled workers, the people who think differently. You create a fortress that keeps the world out. A company needs to be a gateway, not a fortress.
I think there is a middle ground to be found in that multi-tier model. Perhaps the administrative efficiency belongs to my logic. We need the process to work. We need the background checks. We need the cost control. But the strategic sourcing, deciding who to target, requires your mindset. We need efficiency to function, but we need friction to grow.
I can agree with that. The machinery should be efficient, but the net we cast must be wide. We need to stop looking for the purple squirrel that fits the job description perfectly and start looking for the people who can expand what the job could be.
A fair compromise. To our listeners, we hope this exchange has prompted you to look at your own hiring practices. Whether you are a hiring manager or a candidate, ask yourself, is the process designed to replicate the past or build the future?
Exactly. Thank you for joining us for this intellectual exchange. There is always more to explore in the material, and we encourage you to dig deeper.
Welcome to the debate.